So thank you very much for having us here. And I actually realized I missed what I was grateful for in the introduction. So I would say I'm extremely grateful for the longer days of less darkness at 4 and 5 p.m. 4 and 5 p.m. I'm located out on Vancouver Island on the West Coast. And so I'm a little farther north, right at the 50th parallel. So those 3:30 and 4 p.m. days where it's getting dark, we're getting to be a bit much, but glad and grateful that the days are getting longer with sunlight. Thank you again for having Dipika and I here to present on the Evergreen AI for the Resilient City program. I'm excited to share kind of an overview of the program and how it kind of directly relates to Civic Tech's purpose and meaning, looking at technology and public life and how that works together. Before we get started, I just want to say, I know I'm not sure anyone from Microsoft is in the room, but we're always thankful to our seed partners, Microsoft, who got this program off the ground, and our current funding partner, RBC. Evergreen runs the program, but we work with our technical partners, Gramener, which is an AI and machine learning insights company based out of the United States to make everything possible. Let's see if this is gonna... There we go. So at the heart of it, the AI for the Resilient City program with Evergreen is a scalable data visualization and analytics tool that allows government stakeholders to recognize the areas most impacted by urban heat islands and extreme heat, with the ability to identify where investments and policy decisions for adaptation and mitigation interventions may be most suitable and have the greatest benefit or ROI to the community and the environment itself. One benefit of this tool is that it can be replicated by a municipality after working with us, using open source data to advance their own climate resilience and adaptation efforts when it comes to UHI and extreme heat in particular. The kind of value proposition and the goal of the program is largely to identify urban heat island hotspots within an area or a region to support that data-driven decision-making. It allows the users to explore building infrastructure and typology, whether that's height, the age, or the construction type of that building, as well as pervious versus impervious surfaces, or typologies like residential, commercial, industrial, institutional, and things of that magnitude. It also provides comparisons of heat variation when it comes to land surface temperature in relation to what's on the ground. So looking at comparisons of water bodies, buildings, green spaces, open fields as some of the examples, and allows the user to understand the relation between population density to UHI at a fine resolution, and something that we're always working to improve. Other metrics are providing insight into vegetation healthiness of an area on a 0 to 1 scale. And then our newest addition to the application, which occurred in Q1 of last year, was actually integrating a machine learning algorithm to determine the change over time. So looking into the future from 1 to 5 years, using custom variables and models at the census tract level to understand how UHI and extreme heat are expected to change in the coming years, but also allow a user to input custom variables to better understand that. The tool generates UHI maps among other variations that can be downloaded and integrated into other geospatial tools for, in this example, government stakeholders, who could then add that into the planning process or the plethora of tools they already have access to make informed decisions. Some of the data sets and variables that we use are the Landsat data, so open source high resolution satellite imagery, heat analysis using USGS methodology for radiative land surface transfer, which incorporates other variables and data sets as well as weightings. NDVI, which is the vegetation index, which measures largely the healthiness associated with greenness of vegetation. So that does have a higher weighting to, as an example, grass and canopy cover versus other types of vegetation. NDVI, which is the building index, which measures the variation in pervious versus impervious surfaces in a region or community. Building footprints and typology using municipal data sets that map all permitted buildings in a geographic location and are updated typically quarterly or yearly. Building age and height where applicable, population density at the ward level, and then age distributions based on the largest majority of age group at the distribution level we're looking at. Phase one of the tool started with the city of Calgary. This was developed in partnership with the city and Graminar. This phase included the creation of the very first tool with multiple layered data sets that examines extreme heat in the city, otherwise known as UHI. Since the integration of the City of Calgary AI tool, we then created a Peel Region AI tool, working with both the Region of Peel and the Toronto Region and Conservation Authority. Of course, everyone here would likely know, but with Caledon, Brampton, Mississauga are in the top 10 for population centers in Canada. So this tool provides essentially insights for 1.5 million Ontarians living within the region. So as mentioned previously, it was made in collaboration with the TRCA and Peel Region, as well as our technical partner, Graminar. The purpose was to understand how Peel Region's urban heat islands have changed and moved throughout the years from 2013 to 2022, identify some of those contributing factors with evidence, and provide the region and the Conservation Authority those UHI hotspots. And the intention was to apply the insights from the visualization at the neighborhood, watershed, and local municipality scale. So at the neighborhood scale, we were utilizing those insights from the tool to aid in programs like Sustainable Neighborhood Action Program with the TRCA, as well as potentially support other projects like Partners for Project Green, which people in here may be aware of. At the watershed scale, the UHI analysis was incorporated in the climate mitigation and adaptation plans for Peel Region watershed planning. And at the local municipality scale, use of the application to better inform decision-making and policy measures relating to extreme heat, whether that's at the regional level or with cities like the city of Mississauga, who we currently work with and talk with in regards to emergency management, climate change, and smart city applications and programs. This application has 4 modes primarily that users can use in various ways to seek the solutions and outcomes they're looking for. The very first mode is simple. It's called story mode. It really allows users to see data insights like examples of heat temperature, infrastructure, and demographic data as easily digestible stories. Most commonly, we're seeing this mode used with upper levels of management or potentially politicians and counselors who are interested in learning a little bit more about some of the key numbers and facts regarding their ward as an example, or the region as a whole, and takes you through a curated story that we work with partners to create. The second mode is the explore mode. So it showcases the historical and present day kind of as is of the city and the associated urban heat islands. So on the photo to the left, it shows every permitted building in the city of, in this case, Mississauga, creeping into Brampton, but the region of Peel, not only their typology. So the dark purple on that screen would be residential. Pink, I believe, is commercial, and that kind of off red would be industrial, to my knowledge. Showing the typology of all these buildings, and on the right side, it actually shows that UHI analysis of those locations, with each pixel representing a 100 meter by 100 meter area. And a user is then able to click on a specific pixel, and it will pull up a sidebar, as you can see on the right of that image, that shows the open map box satellite imagery of that location to better understand what we're looking at. The third mode is the compare mode. So this actually allows users to compare correlating variables at the same time, or the same variables at different points in time. So for example, changes in extreme heat and UHI in comparison to building age or vegetation cover, or pervious versus impervious surfaces. So on the top right comparison, we're looking at UHI from June 2020 in a specific area related to what I believe is a river and open green space area compared to the typology of buildings in that region. Whereas the bottom comparison is looking at the UHI heat analysis from June 2020 on the left, comparing to August 2015 on the right, and kind of getting a better understanding of how not only infrastructure and the environment is affecting UHI, but also the trend and direction in which global warming and climate change and extreme heat is progressing over the years. The last mode, and it's probably our favorite as well as our partners, is the scenario mode. So this mode uses a predictive machine learning algorithm in real time to determine the expected outcome of UHI for a specific area. This is able to be used both as selecting a census level area, and inputting either a model type or custom variables. So in this case, on the middle image with the purple circle around it, on the top of that image, you'll see a select a year and select scenario model. So an individual could select a year from 2024 to 2029, and then select the base model we use for that. And it would output what the expected change is based on all the data within the database we have for that specific area. Otherwise, an individual can then actually change the variables that they're looking to see. This is useful for developers and planners at the government level to understand how potentially a new development may affect UHI and have stronger evidence to prove that case. So in this example, an NDVI index increase of 25%, a building increase of 5%, no change to height, and building block coverage by 5% would output the image on the bottom. All of these simulations are done in real time and typically take anywhere from a few seconds to a couple minutes to output those changed variables. And then those can then be downloaded and then integrated those outputted scenarios into a GIS system or ArcGIS to then be able to compare a number of different scenarios against your base map layer and understand kind of how changes today will affect the tomorrow, and the ability to make those changes and understand the impact before, in this case, a shovel ever hits the ground. Speaking to some of the impacts and use cases among partners to date. So for reference, this program started in late 2021 with the City of Calgary. And over the course of the year and a half after the pilot program, the City of Calgary used the application to create climate risk profiles for all 23 neighborhoods in the City of Calgary. The information helped to identify where the city needs to prioritize the location of shading and cooling amenities by setting higher standards for street trees and cooling in the warmest areas. Supported the planning of 10 public infrastructure projects, parks, bridges, roads, things of that nature, and 5 planning proposals when it comes to actual development of the City of Calgary and those communities and neighborhoods. The demonstrated effects, so the tool provided the demonstrated effects of roads and paved spaces on heat, with the highest temperatures being around paved parking lots and rooftops, which to many is obvious, but the actual evidence to take that information and that data to council to make physical change in the city was important to make those policy decisions. And then further to that, the demonstrated cooling effect of parks and natural assets, particularly of water bodies in this context of the City of Calgary. And since that pilot project with the City of Calgary, they were able to, with the help of our technical team and Evergreen, replicate that application for direct integration to their own data visualization platform that they have internally that's proprietary. And so they're then able to integrate all of their other data sets into this tool to get a holistic look from a climate resilience lens at all aspects of the City of Calgary, not just extreme heat, but flooding, socio-vulnerability, and all the other factors to make informed decisions. With the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority, we've been working with them to implement it into the Sustainable Neighborhood Action Plan and the Partners for Project Green program teams, as well as its integration into the heat mitigation and adaptation module they provide to partners of the Partners for Project Green program with the TRCA. For the region of Peel, there's a number of items they've been using to the application for. So one would be the asset and service vulnerability initiatives. So largely using the application to support the enterprise climate change risk, financial planning, and infrastructure adaptation assessment. On the urban forest initiatives front, using the application to better support and understand urban forest strategy update, the urban forest management plan, Peel canopy cover assessment update, as well as the natural green infrastructure inventory and a condition assessment. I'm not too sure if any of those items are completed as of yet. I know there was some things kind of put on hold during the break above the region, which has now been canceled. So those are back underway. And then some additional initiatives that are underway and using the tool in some capacity for support or planning are the engineered green infrastructure inventory and condition assessments, climate informed emergency management planning, and then bringing on other stakeholders like the Peel Climate Change Partnership, which integrates all of the local municipalities. On top of that, we don't have a slide for it, but we're currently partnering with and going through the MOU process with the city of Mississauga to look at how we can work together stronger and use the application to support their needs, specifically on the climate change, smart cities, and emergency management planning front. Kind of the next steps for the program, and then I think I have some time to take some questions. Is we're actually looking to increase the diversity of data sets and variables within the tool, and currently working on a methodology to look at community vulnerability to extreme heat, understanding better the public space relationship to UHI and how to enhance that within the application to better visualize and analyze kind of those connections between each of them. Looking at using machine learning to map out canopy cover change over time. Currently, one of the roadblocks kind of across Canada, but specifically with the region of Peel and other regions, is that canopy cover studies are typically done on a 4 to 6 year rolling basis. The idea of using machine learning would allow the cities to better understand how that canopy cover is changing over time in between those years when the studies are being completed, to then provide them additional insights and reduce kind of that workload for those studies, but use those studies to inform the machine learning as well. Looking at land use change over time, if it's identified as a priority by the city. And then we're looking to actually bring the tool, to new municipalities and communities across Canada. So right now we are working with the region of Peel and the city of Calgary, but we're currently in talks to expand to both the West and the East Coast, and then continuing to enhance the newly created scenario mode and increase the number of models available in that mode. As an example, looking to see if we can integrate an IPCC model and how that would affect the outcomes. That's all I have for this talk. I'm happy to take some questions, Dipika and I are. And if you have any questions that you think about a later date, please feel free to contact either me as a program officer at Evergreen, working on this program, or our general AI for the Resilient City email. And I thank everyone for allowing me to speak today.
Yeah, go ahead. Do a Q&A.
Yeah.
If you don't have the slides, I can do it. What do you think? Do you want the slides? Thanks so much for your presentation. We're going to do a Q&A. Why don't we start with any questions that we've got online? Are there any questions online?
Yeah, Jonathan has a question. Jonathan Brown.
Yeah, great. This is timely. I'm Director of Education for Go Open Data, and I'm also a volunteer, the GIS coordinator for a little town in Cobourg, an hour east of Toronto, Sustainable Cobourg. We're running a hackathon on May the 11th, and we're looking at how to replicate the City of Kitchener's Stormwater Credit Program and here in Cobourg. And then we're also looking at working with the STEP, TRCA's Sustainable Technology Evaluation Program team. They've sponsored a challenge, and it's around how to demonstrate the return on investment for green infrastructure as part of a municipality's asset management plan. So I noticed that you've got asset vulnerability, and the city of Burlington has just finished theirs for transportation services. So my question is, you've done it with Peel, and Peel was part of the Municipal Natural Asset Initiative.
Yep.
You familiar with them out of Vancouver?
Very broadly, yes.
And there were about 8 other municipal cohorts that participated in that natural asset, like how to measure natural assets give it a monetary value, and then build that into your asset management plan. Have you done any of that? Like, I know Vancouver has a target to capture 95% of the rain that falls on the greater Vancouver area, and that they're building assets, green assets, low impact development. And there are lots of big challenges there in terms of aligning the projects to the standards, engineering standards?
Of course, yeah. So we don't actually, so we provide the program and the application to the stakeholders like the Region Appeal. On that natural asset initiative, I'm not sure it's been fully completed yet because of the changes to the structure of the Region Appeal over the last 6 months and kind of things slowing down. So I know the application is being used to support on the heat side and on the UHI side, looking at infrastructure. I don't think that actual initiative is completed yet.
Yeah. And do you support any community science projects that outreach to the community, students, and landowners?
Not on the AI for the Resilient City side of the program, but I do believe Evergreen as a whole does some of that in a different capacity from this current program. So this, as
I'll
an
follow
example,
up with you.
yeah,
I'll
that
send
sounds
you an
wonderful.
email.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
Thanks.
We have one more question in the chat, unless you want to go to in-person questions first.
Go ahead. Let's take the other online question and then we'll move to in-person.
Han?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Josh, for your wonderful presentation. My question is regarding to your last slides. You mentioned you are trying to increase diversity of data sets. So I'm just curious if you guys are thinking about collecting data yourself, or just looking for other like open data that are not currently incorporated in your existing data set.
Yeah, great question. So we actually look to find existing data sets that are already in circulation. So, one of the example is looking at the most recent census data to get the information when it comes to sociodemographics and socioeconomic data to better understand vulnerability and then build that into a methodology relating to extreme heat. Typically, we don't go out we don't go out actually collecting the data. Based on really the available resources and then the requirement to collect it on an annual basis. So currently we have a pipeline where we collect all of our existing data on an annual basis so that we can update the application and tool to reflect typically up to the most recent year, but sometimes the most recent quarter. And I think the resources to collect additional data on top of that as a very small team. So for reference, it's Dipika, myself, and our senior manager. We just don't have the power, the human power, or the resources to get that done. So we largely use existing open source databases and data sets.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
If there are folks in the room who have questions, I'd ask you to either project or come up to the front so that the folks online can hear you as well. Any questions in the room? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned that it was open sourced in some way. Where can people interact with that data or that code? I'd be very, very curious.
So the actual data sets we use are open source, but the application itself isn't open source to the general public yet. It's currently only available to the government stakeholders using that application. That being said, we are looking to create a public-facing version, I believe by the end of this year, to allow individuals to actually take a look and poke around within that. But the open source side is more so the actual data sets we're using versus the access to the application.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Can everyone hear me virtually? Good. All right,
Little bit, yeah.
I'll approach the podium. Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. I had a question more so from the developer side, development side. Are there any ways in which sort of Evergreen and what you've been sort of outlining here can be applied to the developer side in terms of, making a development more attractive, let's say, to demonstrate the ecological benefits of it, so sort of factoring into let's say the pro forma or how they bid for contracts? Can this be leveraged in a way to make things more attractive, or is that sort of beyond the scope of what you do?
It's currently beyond the scope, but it could be used by our partners. So largely, if a developer from the developer side wanted to reach out to a planner who's currently using the application and run through some applications, saying that if we increased vegetation healthiness as an example by X percentage, how would that affect the development, and thus how would that make it a more attractive development for planning purposes and successive applications and permits, but also to the developer itself and the individuals who would be living there. And I would say one of the additions we're looking to include is a stronger vegetation and canopy cover, kind of that machine learning. So once that's integrated, bringing that into the scenario mode, so then a planner could work with a developer to understand how increases to canopy cover would benefit that development and planning scenario. But that would have to be a relationship between the developer and the city or the government stakeholder, and not necessarily Evergreen.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We've got time for one more question. Jim.
AI is a iffy acronym these days. How much of an actual win do you get from using machine learning things rather than a structured model?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
How much of a win do you get from using machine learning?
So I think the benefit of the machine learning, and I agree with the AI. Again, this program was created ahead of the current AI boom with ChatGPT and the use of LLMs. I think the win is that individuals can run a number of scenarios, back to back to back, to pull out real-time outputs and scenarios without having to with the ability to add in recent data sets and have those data sets be instantly integrated into the methodology for the machine learning versus a structured move. There's a set algorithm. I'm not super technical, as you can probably tell. That's probably a question for a more detailed question for our developers at Gramener. But I'd be happy to take that to them, and if you want to email me, I could get back to you.